You mentioned an interesting point there in the middle about that. One of the reasons, one of the first things for choosing, not the first, but one of the reasons for choosing Cosmos was, well, the way the model that they use is been proven to work with the internet, and the internet is still built that way. I have another devil's advocate question here, especially somebody with your experience who has seen the internet grow from, well, the modern internet. Let's not go into ARPANET, right? Like how it scaled. Let's call it that. So the question is this: I'm gonna go to the question. Considering like the internet is pretty decentralized, right? But then we have like DNS and we have HTTP, right? Do you think that let's say Cosmos scales and let's say more and more projects, on board Cosmos, do you think something like relaying potentially or anything like that might create the same problem as DNS created, in terms of like, I don't know if I'm being technically correct here, but in terms of like, the relayer knows the addresses of the packets, where to send one from another. The problem with the DNS system, right, is that it's centralized and somebody owns the address book, and that's because somebody owns the address book, we all kind of suffer a little bit. And there is obviously other things like with HTTP and everything, but forget about relaying even for a second. Do you think that we might or we will bump onto something in the Cosmos technology which will lead, instead of scalability, to centralization, or in that sense, in the sense that DNS and HTTP led to the centralization of the modern internet?
I think there's no doubt that we will hit, I guess, caps and limits in any technology. You always find a limit, and usually then it gets upgraded or re-architected. So that's kind of inevitable with any technology solution. It's the fact that you can upgrade that or kind of improve that before it becomes a critical issue, I think. The way, I guess, the Cosmos SDK is built is that each zone is independent. So at least if you are hitting errors, you're not going to take down the whole network, which is the most important thing. And that was one of the kind of key architecture designs. It's a little bit sort of, if I just could go back to the internet, that's the way every service provider kind of has, it's called an AS number, but it's the equivalent of how we do an IBC interconnect between two blockchains. You can kind of only mess up, well, there are ways you can mess other people's up, but typically you'll only mess your own network up, and rather than others. And then those improvements, it was called MD5 back then, but it was a way of improving the ability to make sure the communications are correct between the networks going forwards. So I think I've seen the road. I think the roadmap is good, and there's constant areas of improvement from technology from that perspective. From a centralization perspective, I think probably the biggest centralization really is the development team that are working on it, but it's also very open and people can submit PRs and add to it as well. The relayers, there's multiple relayers out there, and I think actually relayer is a very good comparison to a DNS host.